What's up, you guys? It's Mr. Ronnie back with another video. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make chocolate chip cookies from scratch. Shout out to my mom because she used to own a baking business, so this is her recipe. So to start off, all the ingredients that you're going to need flour, some sugar, baking soda. Don't worry, I took it out of the box this time. Brown sugar, some eggs, vanilla, and salt. I don't have that with me right now. 1 cup of butter, but that's about 2 sticks of butter. Now with the butter, it needs to be about room temperature, which means it needs to be pretty squishy. So if you take it right out of the refrigerator, you gotta let it sit out for hours until it's squishy, or you can put it in the microwave. Now when you do that, you gotta be really careful. You put it in for about 5 seconds and then rotate it, and 5 more seconds until it's squishy. Only 5 seconds because you don't want to go over, because if you melt the butter, it's game over. We got the big bowl. We need a separate small bowl. I've got a scoop for the cookies, a spatula, some measuring cups, my blender. You're gonna need a pan to put the cookies on. I've got this baking sheet as well to place the cookies on. And then you're gonna need some cooling racks for when the cookies come out of the oven so they have a place to cool down. You're also gonna need an oven. Now to start off, you're gonna wanna preheat your oven. I'm going to preheat my oven to 350. So when I make the cookies, I always start off with the dry ingredients first. So take your little bowl. You're gonna need 3 cups of flour. Now, when I'm doing the flour, I always scoop it out like this. I usually try to get a little bit of extra. I take a butter knife and I scoop all of the extra off the top. After I've added the flour, I'm gonna move to the baking soda. It calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. So I've got 1/4 of a teaspoon, and I'm gonna scoop it out and do it 3 times. Again, I'm gonna do the same trick. I get a little bit extra on top and scoop off the excess with this. 1, 2, 3/4. After the baking soda comes the salt, and it calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So same thing, I'm gonna get the 1/4 of a teaspoon and do it 3 times. And I don't actually have salt in a little box or anything. I've got it here with the grinder, so I'm gonna have to grind out 3/4 of a teaspoon on this, and I'm not gonna show that because it's about to be a struggle. So salt is added. I'm gonna take my spatula and mix all of that stuff together. After the dry ingredients are mixed together in the bowl, I'm going to move on to the wet ingredients. So I've got my big bowl with my 2 sticks of butter, and we're going to add the 2 sugars. So I'm going to get my granulated sugar and add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So again, I'm going to take the 1/4 and do this 3 times. After the granulated sugar comes the brown sugar. It calls for 1 cup of brown sugar. Now the way that I do brown sugar is you add it into the cup, and then instead of taking a butter knife and scraping off the excess, I'm going to pack the brown sugar into the 1 cup. It's packed in, it should be about 1 cup. So I take it here like this, add it to the mix. Now we're gonna cream all this together. So I'm gonna take my blender. I'm gonna start off on the lowest setting and kind of work my way up until it looks the way that I want it to. All right. Once they're all mixed up, it should look a little bit like that. We're gonna add the vanilla and the eggs. It calls for 2 eggs. So for the vanilla, it calls for 2 2 teaspoons. I got 1 teaspoon, I'm gonna do this twice. I'm gonna come back in with my blender and blend it together. Once it's all mixed up, it should look like that. Now it's time to add the dry mixture to our wet mixture. And when you're blending this up, it's gonna get a little tough. So you don't wanna blend it too much because you don't want the cookie dough to be too tough. So what I usually do is I put half of the dry mix in there. I blend this up. And then I add the rest of the mixture. And blend it up. Once it's all blended up, this is your cookie dough. Be sure to take some of it. That's the best part about baking cookies, is eating the cookie dough. Now, for the final step, we're gonna add our chocolate chips. I'm gonna take my chocolate chips. Now, my mom's recipe calls for 2 cups of chocolate chips. However, I don't like a lot of chocolate, so I'm only gonna put 1 cup in. Also, something that I think is very slept on is chocolate chip cookies without the chocolate chips. So make sure you scoop out a couple portions of cookie dough and bake those without the chocolate chips. It's really good. Take your spatula, clean it off first, and mix in the chocolate chips. I'm gonna take my scooper and add the cookies to the cookie sheet and eat as I go. Once the cookies are scooped out onto the pan, I usually do 3 down, 4 across, but it just depends on how big your pan is. Now you can leave them in the little balls like this, but I like to flatten them out a little bit because it makes the cookies bigger. And I always feel like if the cookie looks bigger, I feel like I'm eating more, and I like to eat. So make sure you're washing your hands before you go touch the cookie dough. Corona has taught us anything. Wash your hands. Now we're gonna add the cookies to the oven. Make sure you have an oven mitt, unless you want to burn your hands. All right. Now set your timer. How does this work? How do you type in the time? Oh, for 10 minutes. We're gonna start with 10 minutes. If it needs to be in there for a couple minutes longer, then we'll do that. Once it's been about 10 minutes, pull them out of the oven and check on them. The best way to tell if they're ready and if they're done is see how they're brown around the outside. If they're brown like that, that means that they're good to go. Place them on the cooling rack and let them sit for a couple of minutes before you transfer them onto the other cooling rack. Once it's been a couple minutes, you can transfer the cookies. Be sure to taste your cookies. The best cookies are the ones that are freshly out of the oven. Repeat this process with the remainder of the dough that you have. It should make about roughly... How many cookies does this make? Okay. Makes about roughly 3 dozen cookies, which is about 36 to 40 cookies. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you tried this and how your cookies turned out. If you want to post a picture to Facebook as well, the link is down below. I'll see you guys next time. Best way to clean these. Little snack. Huh? You good? Okay. Ready? The cookie.
Wait, start again.